Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to Drawing Down the Stars. I'm Snappy. Thank you for joining me for our live tarot and sword taste. Today, November 1st, All Saints Day, a new moon and a new year. Beautiful energy, lovely energy. I want to start out by apologizing to you all about the lighting situation. The light is not working that I normally have, and I haven't been able to fix it in time. So I apologize for that. But thank you all for joining me. So let's give a shout out to the chat. Good to see you, Exit 101. Wild dream, synchronicities, familiar spirits are a real thing. Graham, good to see you. Much love. Nikosmas, good to see you. Hollerhaint, much love. Good to see you. Atma, good to see you. Much love. Valerie, good to see you. Isaac, my friend, much love. Alabaster, great to see you. Much love. Gandhi, good to see you. Hermission Mez, good to see you. All right. Mother Rhea, all the love in the world. Tea with Lilith, great to see you. Jazz Age, good to see you. All right. Amazing. Taz, good morning. Rowie, good to see you. All right. Much love, everyone. Thank you all for joining me today. So let's talk a bit about today, the new moon, All Saints Day, reconciling energy, transformative energy. Really intense energy today, also with the moon in Scorpio and the sun in Scorpio. We're really going to be feeling that transformation. We're really going to feel on edge, and we're really going to be ultra sensitive, all of us, really feeling this energy in a very intense way. So make sure you take that into consideration with how you approach the rest of this day and the energy that has been here throughout the day. It's a beautiful time to really know what needs to change and how you grow and what you desire. But it is also that time when you're going to feel vulnerable and you're going to feel attacked and threatened, right? Intense energy. And with that new moon, the new moon is all about facing this energy of death, right? And the All Saints Day, it's about facing and letting go of the past, saying our farewells, learning to reimagine ourselves and move into a new future, right? It's all the same pieces, but in a new form, newly arranged. And we take from the past and we manifest it into the future, right? And we create our future through our actions now in the present, through our actions now is the present. Beautiful energy. And it's also wild because when I was meditating this morning and I drew the cards, I drew the universe. The completion card, the ending of the cycles. Perfect energy for the new moon. Perfect energy for a new year, for November 1st. Really intense. That seems to be the theme of the day, right? That universe card is wild because it is the ending. It is the finality. But it is also a new beginning, right? Why it is that young virginal energy, right? The universe imagines the fool. And with every ending is a new beginning, is a new cycle that comes forward, right? And it's this deep Saturnian energy connected to the universe card, which in some ways seems paradoxical, but Crowley talks about this at length. And one of the big keys that he reveals in talking about the Saturnian energy is the duality of this energy. On one hand, it is the old law. Saturn is that old god of fertility and of the natural order, right? Do what thou wilt. Right? Shall be the whole of the law, adapt or die, right? These intense naturalistic codes, right? And that freedom that comes with that, that is that masculine energy of Saturn. But Saturn is also the great mother. And Crowley lays this out specifically. And he even tells us that this is one of the great mysteries that was revealed to the initiates. To the initiates, they were revealed that that great mother is also Saturn, right? And how this was revealed in the Egyptian, they would tell you that Osiris's true color is black. Because at the end, in the darkest abyss, that is where we find the true light. And we see this same mystery revealed in the Greek as well. Look into the goddess. Look into her names of Gaia and Nyx, and you will see it revealed that Nyx and Gaia are one in the same. They are both mothers of the gods, as stated in the Orphic hymns. And we read that Nyx is also that light, that sun, because these opposites preclude, right? When you start to go to those extremes, you get the mirror. Just as Aphrodite and Aries are tied, so is Saturn and the Great Mother tied. Profound energies that are connected, right? And again, we see this in the myths of the astrology. Look to the energy of Virgo and Scorpio. And who is Libra in the Greek? Libra is an addition in the Greek. It is the claws of Scorpio. Scorpio cut, that loop broken, the masculine and feminine separated. And part of the great mystery is reconnecting them, seeing them as completed totalities of the whole, seeing them both as these universal powers. That which drives us forward and that which creates. Both are that great mother, right? And the universe is about recognizing this, healing the wounds, seeing the totality, seeing the greater picture. And when we see it in our immediate cards, it's about recognizing the completion of certain events, about achieving grandiose things, right? About making important connections. When the universe appears, ask yourself, what has finished? What energy is now moving and what energy is coming in? And what is very clear is that we as individuals go through cycles of transformation, death, and rebirth. And this marks a rebirth, a reimagining of the self, a completion of one cycle and the entering into a new. And it's going to require new adaptation, new ways of thinking and moving, right? Intense energy. And I wanted to read for you guys a poem. It's by Thomas More. Let me see here. It's called Song of a Hyperborean. I come from a land in the sun bright deep, where golden gardens grow, where the winds of the north be calmed in sleep, their conch shells never blow. Haste to that holy isle with me, haste, haste. So near the track of the stars are we that oft on night's pale beams, the distant sounds of their harmony come to our ear like dreams. Then haste to that holy isle with me. The moon too brings her world so nigh that when the night seers looks to that shadowless orb in a vernal sky, he can number its hills and brooks. Then haste. From us descends the maid who brings to Delos gifts divine, and our wild bees lend their rainbow wings to glitter on Delphi's shrine. Then haste to that holy isle with me. Haste, haste. Beautiful energy. And again, about the cycles of completion and rebirth. We are told that that Apollonian energy, Apollo, he only rules Delphi for a number of years before moving north and going to the Hyperborean. And then Dionysus will rule for a number of years before going east, right? Before going east. Interesting. Two sides of the same coin, right? Two energies. Both are that sun. One is the sun reflected in the day. One is the sun reflecting in the night. Both are part of that universe. Unless you can see the harmony in the cycles, you cannot see the totality. And that is what the universe is about. It's about seeing the pattern, right? Many people too get confused when they start to see the unity, when they see that great mother and they see her face reflected everywhere. They say everything must be one. And in a sense, that's a truth, but everything is also individual. And in a sense, this is the truth. Why else would she have so many names? Why else would she be amongst her children? Why does she make love to her children? because it's about creating that multiplicity. Seeing the totality is not about denying the multiplicity. It's about seeing them as one and the same, recognizing the whole, and the purpose of generation. And this is again the secret of Saturn. Saturn is that angry old man, right? Who holds that knife and comes limping after us, telling us to move. But Saturn is also that great mother, that transcendent Aphrodite Urania, who's in ever forever expansion, right? Both are needed for creation, two sides of the same coin, and both must exist in harmony. And the cycles move and shift. All right. Let us continue. We're now going to go to our Ganapati oracle. Ganesha Ganapati is the divine child, the Lord of beginnings, the guardian of the threshold, and the master of the Ganas, the spirits of Shiva, the equivalent of the Lares in Roman mythology, or the Kurites in Greek mythology. All right, let us look. Personal transformation. Personal transformation. What truer words, what more powerful image could we hope for? What defines the universe better than this? Because that universe is always about transformations and rebirth, the ending of a cycle and the beginning of something new. And to truly begin, you must let go. You must say farewell to past and imagine into the future. We talked about this last time. The great tragedy of Orpheus is that he doubted Eurydice. He looked back in doubt rather than project her forward, rather than trust, right? He could not trust that great mother cycle. He could not believe that she would come. And he went to the past in fear. And it's that fear, that forgetfulness as well. We're told again and again that the greatest sin to the Orphics is forgetfulness. And what does Orpheus do but forgets the warning of Hades? And what is memory? Who is memory? Who is the lake of memory? The mother of the muses herself, Mnemosyne. If you wish to drink from memory, you must do so now, before that ending, before the trial. You know, I often think too about Ram Dass. It's a different tradition, but it's a similar idea. Ram Dass has spent his life, his entire adult life, dedicated to his path, dedicated to the great work, doing everything to prepare for death, to remember. And when confronted with that end, he forgot. He forgot. And he is the first to admit it. All of that work, and in the moment, he couldn't focus. But this was a reminder. This was a telling lesson, something that re-engaged him in his life. And he came back to life and showed us this and told us the power of memory and how we achieve it through that meditation, through that engagement with the world, right? Through that unrequited love. Beautiful. All right. We're now going to go to our sortes. For those of you unaware, the sortes is a form of bibliomancy, that is, divination through literature. And it comes from the Greco-Roman tradition. And we invoke the goddesses of inspiration, the divine muses, and we ask them to inspire us and send a message through the text. Today, we're going to begin with Euripides, 10 plays. Muses. What is the message from Euripides? Inspire us. As always in Euripides, the god out of the machine, which ensures the happy ending, is an equivocation. But here, a mind not resolutely skeptical can entertain both alternatives simultaneously. Without Athena's invention, it is clear the Greek party would never escape, and their inevitable doom would underscore the tragic meaning of the antecedent history. But the atmosphere of the remote and wonderful which surrounds the whole makes it easy to accept a final miracle without compromising the total effect. Wild image. The God and the machine, that deus ex machina that was so essential to many of the Euripidean tragedies. Most famous being Medea and her flight on her dragons. In the moment when she is about to lose everything, she takes off to Athens, protected by dragons, in the chariot of the sun. Powerful, powerful energy, right? But it's always about seeing the duality. It's always about recognizing the wildness of the universe, that fortune can just flip on a dime and what seems assured can transform. And those we underestimate may have something in their sleeve, right? It's about recognizing that power, that the universe is not always how it appears. And what seems certain, what seems tragic, doesn't necessarily have to be so. Wild energy. Let's continue. We're going to go now to The Stranger, Albert Camus. Muses, what is the message from Camus? Inspire us. After 5-minute recess, during which my lawyer told me that everything was working out for the best, we heard the testimony of Celeste, who was called by the defense. The defense meant me. Wow. Being on trial, having to defend oneself in the eyes of the law. I'm immediately thinking of this Libra energy again, that goddess Ma'at, the one who weighs justice on her scales. And Ma'at and Medea are clearly connected, right? Ma'at is also that decay energy. And in the stories, right, she weighs your heart to a feather, to a feather. But what we see is something interesting here is that the man calls a woman to his defense. He calls for another to speak on his behalf, right? And this is a powerful image and one to recognize. It's that when we engage in community and when we help each other and work in harmony and we are in that loving energy, if we are ever put into trials, when we are ever called into question or into doubt, then you will have people who will stand up for you. Then you will have someone who will stand up for you. But if you are not a part of that community, if you are not engaging in that loving reciprocal harmony, if you are not helpful, if you are not working with your friends and with with others, then who will speak for you? Who will defend you when the time comes? Right? Well, the defense requires witnesses. You can defend yourself, but is it enough? Is it enough? Right? We are judged by our actions in the world, by our actions with others, how we behave and how we react. And that is what determines us, you know? When you are a part of a community, you can really survive. And it is that community that will tell your story if you have one to share, worthy of sharing, you know? And it's also, I get so frustrated. We always hear about people who are going back to the land, going back to the earth in case there is some sort of apocalypse. And they tell us how they are safe. They have what it takes to survive. Do you? Do you really? Because there's one final thing, one important thing that we all need, and that is community. If you are on your own, you are not going to survive for very long. Maybe your own life, maybe you'll live your full life, but then what you built dies with you, right? It is the community that carries us forward, that sings our songs, you know? one of the secrets of the Larrys is that they are also the ancestor spirits. They're not simply the spirits of the roadways. They're not simply the restless dead, but they are also the ancestors who live with us in the present, in our home, who are attached to us, right? Beautiful, powerful energy, right? If you want to truly be in harmony, you have to connect to those around you. You have to make a difference in other people's lives. You have to be someone who helps, someone who works. You know, if you really wish to survive an apocalypse, you must build a foundation, an alternative community. Because I don't care how strong you are or how capable you are. If there was an apocalypse tomorrow and you're on your own, someone is coming to take your food stores, or you're going to teach them how to farm or work and survive. We're all in this together. We're all in this together. We need each other. And this is something that our modern society and our modern individuality has lost track of, lost sight of, right? I remember I was told this really beautiful story by a friend of mine who had gone through an African initiation ceremony involving Ibogadine, where they buried him in the ground. And when he was buried in the ground doing this ritual to meet the ancestors, he wanted so much. He needed answers. He needed help. He wanted. And when the ancestors approached him, what did they say? Where does your food come from? And my friend could not answer. And then they said, where does your water come from? My friend could not answer. And then he said, I don't, when there was a long pause and there was nothing, finally the ancestors left one word: figure it out. Figure it out. Right? If you're not engaged in the present, if you're not engaged in that earth, then you are not engaged in the muse, right? The muse is fundamentally connected to that generation. The muses are the children of that great mother. They are aspects of that great mother flowing throughout all of creation. And if you wish to understand and to be in harmony, you must be connected to that nature. You must be connected to your body, and you must be connected to the daimones, the Larrys, the muses, the spirits which connect us, right? The nymphs are the spring, right, Gandhi? Of the great mountain. Out of the great mountain comes the daughter, the river, which brings us to the harbor, Heskia, to that peace, right? The mountain is the law bringer, is that power, right? And it is the river that sustains us, that shows us how to flow. All right. Lots of ranting today. Sorry, guys. We're going to do another Sortes, Sinister Assassin. Muses, what is the message from Antonin Artaud? Inspire us. The meeting of the Tower of Babel with the Tower of Pisa, 50,000 centuries later. I've read this one before, but it is such a beautiful one. The meeting of the Tower of Babel with the Tower of Pisa. And for those of you with ears to hear, know the truth of Rome. Those towers, those ancient building of defense, of creating that city of the ladies, a place where we can come together in community, that foundation which will sustain us through the cycles, right? Which sustain us through the collapse and the growth. All right. Let us continue. We are now going to go to Lord Byron. Muses, guide my hand. What is the message from Lord Byron? Terrestrial business filled not in the sky, save the recording angel's black bureau, who found indeed the facts to multiply with such rapidity of vice and woe, that he had stripped off both his wings and quills, and yet was in arrear of human ills. Terrestrial business filled not in the sky, save the recording angel's black bureau. Right? The stuff, the terrestrial business, the stuff that needs to be done is not the talk of that mystical, right? It's not the realm of the mystical, the Olympian of the sky. It is the realm of that Chthoni, that underworld, the Dionysus, the Kronos, that mother, Demeter, right? Save the recording angel's black bureau. The recording angel's black bureau. Hermes, the one who records, the one who writes, the bringer of reason, who found indeed the facts to multiply with such rapidity of vice and woe that he had stripped off both his wings in quills. Stripped off both his wings in quills. Trying to write everything down and to keep track of what's happening upon the earth, he stripped himself of his wings, and yet was in arrear of human ills. Didn't even get to the human ills before he ran out of quills. Just dealing with terrestrial nonsense. Just trying to understand and record it all. Wild. Let's continue. We are now going to go to Paradise Lost, Paradise Regained by Milton. Muses, what is the message from Milton? Inspire us this evening. War unproclaimed. The princely hierarch, in their bright stand, there left his powers to seize possession of the garden. He alone, to find where Adam sheltered, took his way, not unperceived of Adam, who to Eve, while the great visitant approached, and thus spake. War unproclaimed, the princely hierarch, in their bright stand, there left his powers to seize possession of the garden. He alone, to find where Adam sheltered, took his way, unperceived of Adam, who to Eve, while the great visitant approached, thus spake. Thus spake. You know, there's so much going on with that story of Adam and Eve, right? Who is the snake in the garden? The snake in the garden is man, a foreign man, a man of another culture. There is more to the story. There are many, many, many layers, right? There are many ways with any myth, but this is one. And one of the stories of the myth is a woman falling in love with a foreigner, falling out and going to someone greater. We see this represented in so many of the various tribal myths across human history, right? And so many marriages had to be a coming together to bring tribes together, right? We see this in the marriage of Parvati and Shiva. It's a coming together of forms, bringing different tribes together. And we see always one tribe, one way, presented as good and pure and righteous. And then the other is degenerate and weird and violent, right? And they offer a different way of perceiving reality. They offer a different way of understanding, you know? I immediately think of that Dionysus. What does Dionysus offer to the maiden? Dionysus offers the maiden everything. He tells her that she is the most important, tells her that she should have her own rites, secret, that no man can attend, right? And that she is an equal, This is a radical idea. This is so radical. Remember, guys, the Orphics were always radical, even among the Greeks. Why does Homer not write of Orpheus? Right? Yet, why does the person who compiles both Homer and the Orphic hymns do both? Because you're seeing two competing philosophies engaging at the same time, two differences of opinions in an ever-changing world. Nothing is simple, right? And Orpheus was that challenging outsider, just as Pythagoras was that challenging outsider. And they were challenging through new ideas, and female empowerment was one. The drugs were one. Let's continue. We're now going to go to our tarot proper. And we are going to use the Tabula Mundi Tarot by M.M. Moline. And we are going to invoke that energy of Saturn and ask them to dissect our life, to cut it up and put it on the plate, to show us our interconnections, how we can best move and flow, and how we can overcome the conflicts, how we can manifest our true will. And as always, the center card is our most important. But before I begin, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does make a big difference. It boosts everything in the algorithm, and I would truly appreciate it. And if you're at all interested in a private reading, please reach out, snappyddts@gmail.com. All right. Knight of Wands. Knight of Wands. Wow. Beautiful energy. Beautiful energy. We've been seeing this energy over the last few days. The Knight of Wands is recognizing one's power, recognizing that capability, recognizing that passionate energy and utilizing it, becoming that knight, that mature actor who pursues their will but also defends the righteous. You know, the key with this energy of the Knight is that the Knight of Wands is focused on their passions and is prone to underthinking, you know, to not recognizing the earth, to not seeing the swords. Where's this going? Oh, wow. The devil. Beautiful energy, the devil. The devil is significant of that holy mountain journey, of that journey of the fool. It is about that refinement and growth, going through the cycles of change and adaptation so that we can become that one who can walk the middle path and ascend the mountain, who can walk through the eye of the needle and achieve that ionic life, right? The devil gives you what you want. He gives you the power to move mountains. This Knight's energy is that Luciferic energy, right? It is that energy of transformation, of growth and potential. The key, though, is what does the Knight do with it, right? What does the Knight do with this energy? The devil is never the problem. You know, the devil, that Prometheus, they just share knowledge. What does this Knight do with said knowledge? Are we going to use it to climb that mountain, to achieve ionic life, to move and flow in harmony? Or are we going to use it for greedy ends? Right? Are we going to forget what we need to do in this life? Interesting. Interesting. We're seeing the 5 of strife of wands. What we're seeing is that this power, this Luciferian power, this Knight of Wands is showing up in a very negative way, right? We're not walking that middle way. We're engaged in that Leo energy of strife. This is something I relate to because I have that real strong Leo energy. You know, I have my sun in Virgo, but it's right on the cusp with Leo. And these energies are always tied, Virgo and Leo, you know? But the thing here with this strife, it's about what are you engaging with? What are you trying to do? You know, are you trying to fight? Are you pursuing what is not necessary? Are you binding yourself up in bullshit? You know, this is a lesson that personally I needed to hear today. You know, I needed to hear this because the strife is something that we have to actively engage in, right? Otherwise, it's not strife, it's defense, right? It's defense. When strife appears, it's because we are causing chaos in our own life, because we are not walking in harmony, because we are reacting. We are reacting to the universe, to the things we cannot change. And it is causing internal strife. Look at that phonies, right? Look at that ion. They are bound. They are bound by their own power. They are bound by their wants, tied to that ball, unable to escape the fire, unable to walk that middle path because they're bound up. So the key here is to be that mature actor, right? That Knight of Wands can engage in that violence, no problem. He can be that warrior. But the Knight of Wands is a greater calling, right? They can be that great defender as well. They can be the one who builds, who manifests, who transforms. This fiery energy can go in many different directions. And what we see with this Five of Wands is it's a 5, one away from that power of victory, one away from the middle path. If you look in this card, you can see the middle path on full display, going off up that great mountain to that transcendent point where one can ascend to the stars. The path is there and you can see it, yet you're engaged in bullshit, in needless fighting. Do you have the strength to actually go up that winding road, to make the winds as necessary, and to approach the sun, right? To ascend that pyre, to die and be reborn, to recognize that your race is of starry heaven, right? That you may have Titanic blood, but your race is of starry heaven. Let us continue. Prince of Swords. Prince of Swords. Interesting. That Prince energy, right? This is that energy of showing up, immature. This is someone who is pursuing those higher mystical thoughts, those greater understandings, who's trying to see things from that sky perspective, right? Trying to understand things in that grand tapestry sort of way. But they're showing up immature. They're showing up immature. And this is that energy of someone who has some knowledge, right? They are clearly intelligent and pursuing wisdom. But that little knowledge is now leading them to lash out and attack all those around them as if they understand, right? And they probably do have much to teach and much to say. And maybe many of the people they engage with need to hear it. But that prince is bound in conflict. That prince cannot see the higher picture because they're too busy trying to explain everything to everyone else, worried what other people are thinking, worried about other people's paths in an exorbitant way. Look, you see that prince with the law codes, right? Trying to hold other people to account, trying to define what is just. The truly mystical pursuer does not bother with this, right? They understand that all things must adapt and change, and no law can be written in stone, right? It's not to say that these laws may not be important, right? There's great beauty in many of these law codes. But if they cannot adapt to the situation, if we are bound by word, then we cannot grow. We cannot change. And adapting and change is what the Great Mother calls us to. That's where the great wisdom lies. right? We do not want to be bound in this judgmental energy, this preaching energy, you know, even though they're trying to make a difference. And they probably even to some extent are, but they're bound in that chaotic fighting. Let's continue. How do we get out of that Prince energy? How do we see it for what it is? Right? We are called to become the hermit. And look, I love this hermit card so much because you see the two lights, the light of the moon and the light of the lantern. The light of the lantern is that internal light, right? It is about taking that reflective light of the moon and shining it to the depth of one's soul, truly knowing themselves by going through that process of silent sitting, meditation, and reflecting. You can only see that you're engaged in pettiness when you take a step out and you stop engaging in pettiness. It's such a hard lesson to learn. It's such a hard lesson to learn. You know, that prince always thinks they're just, but they never are. They never are. Otherwise, they would be showing up as the knight, right? They wouldn't be in that princely form. The hermit is that reminder to take a step out, to take a step out and to sit in the silence and reflect. And again, I remind you all, Numa did not find the muse until he took the vow of silence. And only then did he hear her. After years of silence, Pythagoras used to have all of his potential students take a 5-year vow of silence before they could become initiated. And if they failed, they would be stricken from the record and deemed doomed in the eyes of the Pythagoreans. Now, I'm not advocating all of Pythagoras. He's clearly somewhat of a nut, but there is much there. And the Pythagoreans are so close to the Orphics in many ways. It's interesting to think on. The tower, the collapse, the fall, unexpected transformation, right? Unexpected transformation, having the rug pulled out from under you, having your life collapse, seeing things from that outside perspective, right? And what we're seeing here is that this prince cannot handle this tower energy. You know, think on our own lives. What has turned us into this defender of justice? What has turned us into this high-minded person who, even though is in the best of intentions, and probably is right? But they are engaged in conflict, in judgment. And this kind of action will not solve the issues that this prince wishes to solve, no matter how many codes of laws are written, no matter how many people who are viewed as the enemy are defeated. Right? That's not how you overcome the collapse of the tower. You overcome the collapse of the tower by rebuilding the tower, by returning to your foundation. Let's continue. Now, this is beautiful. This is beautiful. It's painful, but it's beautiful. And it connects us so deeply to the Scorpio energy, to this energy of Halloween and All Saints Day, and to the new moon. And why I say that is because we see it connected to that Knight of Wands and connected to that Prince of Air. This is about letting go. You know, the Death card is not like the Tower. People conflate these energies often. You know, the Tower is Aries, right? Death is Idonius, Hades, Dionysus. Very different, very different. This is energy you see coming. That Saturnian energy. We were talking about this. That old man with the knife who's behind you, with the ever pushing you forward. And if you stop pushing forward, That's when you fall. But recognize this energy we see coming. We recognize when something needs to be let go of and when we need to be transformed. And what we see here on full display is that we are in the act of transformation. Death is not something that just happens, even though the moment of death may be what happens. Think about death in your own life. People don't just die. This takes years, months, right? Farewell can be something that is prolonged, right? It's never simple. So when we engage with this energy, it's about looking in our own life. What needs to be let go? What needs to be transformed? Where are we going? What are we doing? And what do we see in our tarot? The prince. The prince is the energy that needs to go. This is the transformation. We no longer must embody that prince, that judge, that law bringer, right? This energy is not useful to us in their present. It is engaging us in conflict for needless reasons. What we're seeing is out of that death comes the Knight of Wands, that mature actor, the one who can build and defend, who can be warrior or defender as needed, with maturity and grace and the strength of passion. But we have to go through that death cycle. We have to let go of that prince, that bringer of conflict. And we do that by engaging that hermetic energy, by engaging that Virgo energy, by going through the hard work of transportation, by sitting in the silence, listening and knowing the self, and recognizing what needs to be done. What needs to be done. And it's about reflecting upon these losses in our own lives. You know, this tower also signifies multiple possibilities, right? Loss in the past, potential loss in the future. And what we see is that Prince is connected to all of it. They bring that violence into their own life. They bring that collapse and that conflict again and again and again, right? And again, that conflict causes them to return into the self, to reflect. When will the change come? Right? When will you see that that prince energy is not serving you, that that judgmental energy does not serve you? Doesn't matter if you're morally right or not. Doesn't matter if you're morally right or not. Who is engaged in conflict? Let's continue. Oh, wow. Out of this death, what do we become? Where do we go? Where's that devil energy taking us? To become that priestess, right? What does the priestess do? What is the priestess? They connect to that unconscious, to the moon, to the greater unfolding of it all. They are not involved in the petty conflicts. They're not involved in that immediacy. They see the unfolding of the tapestry before their eyes. They understand the will of the cycles, and they add to the tapestry through long-term subtle manipulation, through action, through weaving, through being a part of that tapestry, right? The difference between that prince, and the priestess couldn't be more profound, right? The priestess doesn't engage in those conflicts. She weaves people into tapestry. She brings people into community. She transforms them through love, right? How do you make someone see a new perspective, right? Even if this prince is morally just, his actions will never bring the law to anyone. They'll never bring the law to anyone, right? All they do was create parodies of the law where people will either follow extreme versions, their own version, or they'll use this as a weapon, right? This kind of action only begets more violence, right? The priestess is engaged in the song. It's engaged in the song, right? They are too busy singing. It's funny. I'm reading the chat, and Atma, you bring up Wahe Guru, right? Guru Nanak Ji is a perfect example of this. He is born into one of the most chaotic periods of human history in his place, right? In what was Pakistan, but now parts of India. And he was engaged in massive conflict between many different religious groups, Hindu, Muslim, Sufi, you name it, they were all there. But what did Nanak do? He sang. And he brought everyone together in harmony through the singing, not through engaging in conflict, but for showing us how we are all united. How are we connected in that immediacy with that priestess energy, weaving us together in song, in harmony, in flow. Let's continue. Four of Wands, completion, completing the cycle. Wow. This is where that devil energy is going. This is what the devil energy is about. It is about going through this process of becoming the priestess, going through those transformations. And it's a 3-step process. We are starting out as that prince, right? As that force that's engaged in conflict. Then we are transitioning to that knight, that mature person, but someone still fundamentally engaged in the conflict, right? And then we end as the priestess, someone beyond conflict, someone that's engaged in something far greater for the purposes of completion and harmony and rebirth. All right. I'm now going to flip my camera so you can see the full Saturn square. Once again, please give me a like and a subscribe. It really does boost everything in the algorithm. It makes a big difference. And if you're at all interested in a private reading, please reach out, snappyddts@gmail.com. All right, let's start here with that devil. The key to actualizing this devil power, right, and becoming that priestess is to go through that process of the hermitage. Listening to the body, listening to the silence, doing that hard reflection, and putting this powerful energy of wisdom to greater use, to that great use of becoming that one who can move in harmony and flow. Beautiful, right? We talked about this, Ro. It's that cycle of growth, right? We have to let go of that princely energy. We have to let go of that judgmental energy, of that warrior fighting energy for our own selfish reasons. And we must evolve to become that knight, that defender, that builder, the manifester, the one who can transform the reality around them, right? And to do so, we go through that death. But recognize this transformation isn't even enough. The third transformation, always in threes, is the priestess. And this is who we're meant to embody the energy we are going towards, right? And it is about overcoming that loss. Look, we even see the loss get less and less until it is over. Look, when we are enacting as that prince energy, we have the tower because we are engaged in conflict and we are constantly causing our foundation to collapse because we cannot stop with the conflict, with the judgment, right? We see that 5 of Wands, the strife that is born out of that passion, right? That is born out of, again, that desire to engage in conflict. But it's this conflict that binds us, that prevents us from moving forward along the path, that prevents us from walking that middle way, from making the reasoned actions that will allow us to weave down this winding road. All of this, though, is coming to completion. It is coming to completion. The cycles are ending and we are gaining that wisdom. And we gain that wisdom through letting it go. And a big part of letting it go is to stop trying to change the universe, to stop trying to hold people to account, to not worry so much in that judgmental sphere, right? To not engage in strife. So much of this is projected of our own mind. This is why the hermit is here. Because when you sit in the body and you do the rites and you listen and you engage, you'll see how frivolous this all is. You'll see how pointless it all is. You'll see how ugly this character is. You'll see how useless this character is and how needed this energy is. It is this energy that can move between the poles. The poles, she is in between them. She is the water that flows between them, quite literally, you know? And it's this that'll complete that cycle for us when we embody that lunar priestess, when we become that person who can see the tapestry and add to it, right? When we can bring people together in harmony through song rather than engage in conflict, rather than engage through passion. The key is about going through that hermit cycle, using this power of wisdom for self-reflection, knowing thyself. When that Luciferian energy comes and it says, what do you want? I want to know myself and take responsibility for my actions. That's what you ask the devil. And that's how you become the priestess. All right, let's now look at our crosses. It is that night, that pursuing of passion, taking responsibility, that'll help us become that priestess, right? And it's about moving away from these conflicts and recognizing our own hand in the conflicts, right? And doing something about it that will eventually end that energy, transform that energy, you know? By reflecting upon the past and where we have come from and the pain that has resulted, we can see where we need to go and who we need to be. All right. And our last cross, it is going through this energy of the hermit, becoming that mature actor that'll allow us to come to that completion, to build the foundation necessary to become that priestess. And this is the energy where we're going, where we are called. This is our transformation and our rebirth, right? The one who can see the totality of the weave, the one who's engaged in that unconscious energy, in that instinct energy, who's flowing with that great mother, who understands the cycles on that grandiose scale and is above the petty conflicts. All right, everyone. That's the message. I hope it resonated with you. It certainly resonated with me. All right. We are going to do one final sortes, and then we are going to call it an evening. All right. We're going to go to, what are we thinking? Alice in Wonderland. And Through the Looking Glass, Lewis Carroll. Muses, what is the final message for everyone this evening? Here, something began squeaking on the table behind Alice and made her turn her head just in time to see one of the white pawns roll over and begin kicking. She watched it with great curiosity to see what would happen next. "It is the voice of my child," the White Queen cried out as she rasped past the king, so violently that she knocked him over among the cinders. This is very clear to me. Alice is that priestess energy. She can see things from beyond, from outside that perspective, and she can see how everything is playing out. She sees the pawn fall over of its own action, and she sees that great mother, the White Queen, panic, knock her king into the fire, turn to cinders in order to help her child who had fallen of his own means and was not in harm. But you only can see that kind of insanity when you are not involved in it, you know? When you're not involved in it, when you can really take that outside perspective. And often we need to bring this outside perspective in, right? We need to see outside of ourselves. And that's where the reason lies. That's where the reason lies. So the final message too is about, if you truly want to transform and overcome that death, become that priestess, look to your loved ones and expand your perspective. Go into the self, but also listen to those around you. All right, everyone, that's the message. Peace and love, and I hope I hear you again. Hope I see you again tomorrow for more live tarot in Sortes. Take care, everyone.